And the V&A's new furniture gallery opens this weekend. Now to British thriller writer Lee Child, who's just published A Wanted Man, the 17th novel in his hugely successful Jack Reacher series. Next month sees the transfer of Child's creation to the big screen, with Tom Cruise playing the lead role. So I went to New York to meet the writer behind Hollywood's latest hero.
Once in a while, a character from a book comes along that captures the imagination of millions. Jack Reacher is that man. A 6'5", strong, silent, cerebral drifter turned vigilante who passes through town trying to avoid trouble, but always, always coming up against it.
Reacher's an ex-military police major who, over the course of 17 novels, has outfought and outwitted a whole array of cold-blooded villains. He's the archetypal knight-errant who rides into town to save the day, and usually a damsel in distress. But he's the type of action hero who never stays long enough in one place to bed down. He's a loner, always on the move. A man with no emotional baggage and no personal possessions, apart from a travelling toothbrush.
Lee Child, the author who dreamt up this all-American action hero, is originally from Birmingham, England. He came to live in New York 14 years ago, and unlike his hero Jack Reacher, has always wanted to stay put.
Really from about the age of 4, I honestly felt I was a New Yorker somehow trapped in Britain. New York was where I wanted to be. It's where I'd wanted to be all my life, and eventually I got here.
Do you think that you could have written the Jack Reacher novels if you'd been living in the UK?
Well, you know, that's a literary question. That what is the root of Jack Reacher? Where does Jack Reacher come from? And everybody assumes he is this quintessentially American character based heavily on the Western characters from 100, 150 years ago. The point about that in a literary sense is the Westerns did not invent that character. They merely imported it from a much older European tradition. Medieval Europe had that exact same character, literally the knight-errant. That's who he was. It's just that America is more or less the last place in the world where this character can now exist, because that character needs emptiness, hostility, weird landscape, vast distances, i.e. America.
Are you able to give me a capsule summary of the plot of Wanted Man?
Yeah, I mean, A Wanted Man evolved out of the way that I write, which is just to say, what if? What if you're hitchhiking? What if you get into the wrong car? What if you realize everybody in the car is lying to you? Jack Reacher was no kind of a legal scholar, but like all working cops, he had learned something about the law, mostly its tricks and its dodges. And he had learned the areas where the law was silent, as in, there was no law that said people who pick up hitchhikers have to tell the truth. As in, King claimed somewhere in Nebraska as his residence, but then said there were 1.5 million people living where he lived, which was impossible. Only Philadelphia was close to that number. So, were these guys really from Philly?
To what extent are you like Jack Reacher?
In a lot of ways. I think any fiction writer makes their protagonist an idealized version of themselves, a sort of wish fulfillment version. So he's a lot better at stuff than I am, but we come from the same place, which is that, you know, I'm observant, I'm obsessed by facts and trivia and strange connections and so on, and in a geeky and ridiculous way. Reacher had been a cop in the army for 13 years, and then for almost as long had lived on his wits, and he had survived both phases of his life by being appropriately cautious and by staying alert. All 5 senses, all the time. Deciding whether or not to take an offered ride depended mostly on smell. Could he smell beer, weed, bourbon? But right then he could smell nothing at all. His nose had just been broken.
One thing Reacher is very, very good at is fighting. which makes me wonder, have you ever been a scrapper and a bruiser? You don't seem like that.
I don't look like that anymore, but I was as a kid. You know, my parents were aspirational for their sons, and that immediately then marks you out as, you know, a swot or too big for your boots. I did well in school, which again marks you out. And so I was picked on constantly, but I loved it. I loved every second.
Was your trademark assault a form of headbutt?
Yeah, the headbutt. The headbutt was, you know, something that Reacher learned from me, definitely. And
he's very, very good at that.
He's good at that. I'm good at that. I was good at that as a kid. It was, you know, it's a great response to headbutt. I call it, it's like bringing a sawed-off shotgun to a knife fight.
At this point, I'd just like to say I really like the new book.
Yeah.
There's this guy. He's the kind of cop. At least he used to be. He doesn't care about proof. He doesn't care about the law. He only cares about what's right.
So your new book's out, and your 9th novel has been turned into a movie. And there's quite a lot of controversy, to put it mildly, among the Jack Reacher fan base about the actor who's been chosen, because Jack Reacher is this huge guy. I think you describe him as looking like a condom filled with walnuts in one of the books.
Excuse me, sir. There's a Jack Reacher here to see you.
And yet he's being played by
Tom Cruise. By Tom Cruise. Yeah. It's an awkward period right now. The release is Boxing Day in the UK. I've seen it, and the readers haven't seen it. And I personally think it's a great movie, and that's my honest opinion. And people say to me, "Oh, you would say that, wouldn't you?" But if it was a bad movie, I would say so.
You'd be
loud and clear
with the headbutts.
Yeah, I would burn their house down, because, you know, they had the chance and they had to get it right. But actually, they have got it right. It is terrific.
Remember, you wanted this.
I gather you've even got a little walk-on part yourself.
Yeah, there's a scene where Reacher is in jail overnight because of a brawl. Charges won't stick, so he's released in the morning. And he has his possessions returned to him. And Reacher famously only has one possession, which is his toothbrush. And they saw a sort of multi-layered, freighted significance in that it had to be me handing the baton, essentially, to Tom Cruise.
There are 3 things cops never do. They don't vote Democrat, they don't drive Cadillacs, and they never use personal vehicles. It's not a cop.
It works really, really well.
It's your toothbrush.
Yeah, it's your toothbrush now.
It's been a real pleasure.